Chapter 11. He felt a deep thrumming that seemed to come from the sea through the hull. It cut into his sleep until he opened one eye, closed it, shook his head, and could more fully awake. The sound was louder, almost a rumble now, a water-borne thunder that actually made the hull vibrate when he put his hand against it. For a part of a second, the sound was so alien he could not place it. Then it came. Engines. Ship engines. They had found him. He was saved. Huge engines were driving a ship, still louder now and closer, and he rolled off the bunk and jumped to the rear hatch to yell and wave. A gray wall was thundering towards the Frog in the moonlight, too close. A high gray wall of steel that was the side of an immense oil tanker rumbling towards him and rolling white froth at its bow. Too close. It didn't seem that the ship could miss. The thing was giant, filled with whole night horizon, filled the sky, filled the sea. Covered with lights, it was like a city, a moving city of noise bearing down on him. He slammed the rear hatch, ran back through the cabin, and pulled the front hatch into place. There was still no wind, so he could not hope to sail, could not hope to move the boat. He jumped back to the cockpit. Maybe if he held the tiller over, he could turn the Frog. So fast, it all came so fast. Asleep one second, the tanker on him the next. The noise was deafening. Now a full-throated, throbbing roar that filled the water and the air. Flashing images, some red paint and white numbers that seemed to tower over him. High, high and away, the glaring white lights of the bridge. He thought he could see small figures there, little people moving in the white light. Then it was on him. On the Frog. He wanted to close his eyes. He wanted to make it all a dream, but there was no time now to do anything more. The bow of the tanker reared above him, but did not collide. It slid sideways past, above him but past, and he thought that it could not be that big, could not be that huge, and not hit the Frog. The bow wave of the tanker hit him then. A large curl of water kicked sideways from the ship. Cushions that had been up on top, draped on the handrails and boomed, were knocked over the side into the water. David grabbed the tiller and tried to keep the stern aimed at the right side of the tanker, but without any forward movement, she couldn't steer, couldn't turn. The wave grabbed her, pushed her over until it seemed the mast and the sail were skidding along the surface of the water. She was surfing on her side, surfing, and if the tip of the mast caught the water, she'd flip over and down and fill and sink. All in one motion, she'd be gone, and he'd be gone, caught in a giant screws of a tanker, churned to pieces. Something came then, some instinct. In horror, he watched the mast skid lower and still lower until it knew he had to do something, anything. He had been holding the tiller into his stomach in reflex. He now slammed it away, pushed it to the far side of the boat, and held it, leaning until it seemed he was looking straight down into the black water, and it worked. When the tiller slammed over, it caused the Frog's stern to give a quick jerk sideways. This movement in turn pushed her bow slightly back up the wave that had forced her down. It was a whipping movement, an abrupt snap, and in a looping, swinging motion, the Frog slipped back around and up and took the main force of the pressure wave from the tanker bow on. Some water splashed over the front, but not more than a few gallons, and it sluiced quickly off the sides. The Frog took it easily. The tanker thundered past, slower than he wished it would have, but faster than he thought such a huge ship could move. People, he thought. There are people right there, right on the other side of that steel. There are people right there. Hey, he yelled, hey, 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 until he could not control it and began to near scream, but the rumble of the tanker's engine drowned out any chance his voice would carry. For a full minute the tanker passed, so close he thought, so close he could see the rivets in her hull and the water pumping out of the exhaust holes on her side. So incredibly close that when he looked high up on the top edge of her side, he could see a single light bulb swinging on the end of a wire. People, right there, right there. Hey! He cupped his hands around his mouth and bellowed as loudly as he could. Hey! But nobody came to the rail. Nobody heard. The stern was coming now, roaring past, and the turbulence caused by the tanker's screws bounced the frog this way and that, though not as severely as he had expected. And then it was gone. The high stern seemed to lean back over for a moment, a long moment, and the tanker was gone, moving rapidly away. Wait! David screamed. Don't go! Wait, wait! Now somebody looked back and wait! He could see lights on the bridge from the rear, was certain now that he could see people, small people moving in the lights, but there was no indication anybody saw anything, no reaction. How could they miss seeing him? The sails were still up, were catching the moonlight and must be visible for miles, for a white triangle against the ocean. How could they not see him? No flares. If only he had had some flares. How was it possible that Owen had not put flares or some emergency light on aboard? Light. He needed some light. The boat battery was dead, and the batteries in the only flashlight he'd found. The candle, that was it. His only light, the candle. He scrambled below, and the violence of emotion from the tanker's bow waved the candle and matches that had been on the table had been thrown off. Frantically he fell to his hands and knees and felt around beneath the table in the darkness, sweeping back and forth. There! His fingers hit the candle and it rolled. He grabbed for it, missed, grabbed again, and caught it. Then matches. The book of matches had skidded further, near the mast, and he found them only when he wasted moments crawling under the table to its other side. He forgot himself and jumped for the rear hatch so fast he hit his head on the tabletop. The tanker was still near, but moving away rapidly. He fumbled and dropped 2 matches before he struck one and hit it to the wick of the candle. It lit immediately, sputtering once when he breathed on the new flame, caught and flared up. He held it up, waved it carefully back and forth in a wide arch, left to right and back again. The movement made the flame flicker, but it didn't go out. He tried a wider arch, stepping sidewards from the side of the cockpit to the other, moving the candle slowly over his head and down. The tanker kept moving, away. There was no sign from the ship that they had seen the light. Please, he whispered loud, please, see this, see the light, see the candle, please. He waved it higher and higher, and wider, and the movement blew it out. With shaky hands he lighted it, waved it again, waved it until the lights, the bright lights of the tanker, had drawn together in the distance until there was only a blob of yellow on the horizon. Waved the candle until the lights of the tanker were completely gone over the edge of the earth, gone from his life and his eyes forever, and still he waved, slowly, silently, waved the candle.